doing this first video. Hi.
Hi.
This is Reina. I'm Sebastian, if you didn't know. And we were wondering, in terms of making content together, what we can make it about. And our first idea while we're on this really long trip was problems you might experience
As a couple.
as a couple who travels. 5 things specifically that might cause issues or bring stress or tension within the relationship. And we're getting those 5 by experiencing them, by finding them on our own. And this is 1 weekend, a week and a half.
Yeah, we can have.
So that's about the little rundown. We're currently in Bali. It's lovely. It's sweaty. We might hear some sounds of construction in the back. If you do, don't worry. It's just so booming that there's construction everywhere. Our very first point we experienced way before leaving, way before being here, it was actually how you go about planning. One of the biggest trouble you might have if you're considering going on a trip with a partner, especially a long trip. Ours is 122 days long. It's a really long time. It's where to meet halfway in how you go about planning. I like being spontaneous as we travel.
Not as much.
And she likes knowing the food of where we're going and the where we're going in the first place and having things to do. So we are maybe a good example of an approach to do because we're 2 very different people in so many different areas of planning a trip. And what we did in terms of this trip, which was already bringing a fair amount of conflict in the beginning as we were talking about going on a trip in the first place. Where do we go? What do you do? How do you go about it? Does one person go solo? Do you go together? How do you make it work? One of the first things that we kind of figured out was just where do you want to go? As we picked areas, money was like a main point for where we would go.
Yeah.
But as we picked areas, our type of traveling was a big point. I'm a beach person. I want to go to an area with a beach where I can do nothing a lot and drink lots of coffees and just sit or surf or have a great time, like just relaxing, being at peace versus...
I like cities, shopping, markets, lots of things happening all the time, everywhere.
Yeah. And so if one of us was in charge of picking everywhere we went, it would have been a really difficult time for the other person. Our way to deal with that was, because we were planning a multiple destination trip anyway, was more choosing where we would meet halfway. Was it going to be like one country fully someone's style of traveling and the other one fully the other person's? And how we came to our agreement was every country we go to, half of the time we spend there, or as close to that as possible, is spent in a beach area, and then half of the time is spent in a busy, like more touristy, like a city of sorts. So that was our argument, our first agreement, to meet halfway. We will go and do halftime chilling, halftime busy exploring. So how we went about traveling itself, like the transport. She does pretty poorly on planes.
Ew.
I like the plane. I have a good time on it. So it was more of a, how do we go about getting there? How do we not kill each other on a 14-hour flight and then another 5-hour flight?
And 14-hour layover.
In terms of the flying, wasn't too tricky. In terms of where we stay at, I had some needs because of Quinn. I had some needs to be at least in places where I could have a quiet room to myself to be able to do recording on the go.
No hostels.
I have this whole microphone that I brought, so I couldn't do hostels. We had to do a little bit more of a price bump. The cheapest food, although it turns out you're way more into expensive food than I am.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it was once again this place where we had to meet. That one was a hard certainty that had to be set. Like, we need to be in a quiet place. Ironically, the very first place we're in has an insane amount of construction, and I have to record at night when they're done doing construction, or apparently I should record on Sundays. I'm having to record at very different times just because even though we did pick a place that would have been quiet, you never know everything about the place. Just like this is an adult-only hotel, and we still have some kids, literally as I say this, we have some kids around, mostly staff, family and stuff, so it's whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of unpredictable factors. What was it in terms of where we go, where we stay? Oh, and just like the doing that. Like, I'm someone that I can't see the bigger picture unless I'm actually looking at it. Like, I will open every tab for every flight, every location we're going for hotels, and I need to see them all before I hit purchase. Like, that's how I work. Versus for her, as soon as we would reach 20 to 30 minutes on a computer, her brain is checked out, and that's neurotypical. It's normal, apparently.
I need breaks.
People don't do this for just 5 hours straight to figure it all out at once. So we kind of met halfway there too by doing only one of the countries at a time. We would still only buy the flights and hotel once we had picked flights to that place, that hotel, and then maybe the flight out. And then we would buy that as a chunk. So we still did it. We kind of met halfway. We did chunks where we were able to split days apart, but we still did chunks that were combined as well. So that way I can see the big picture and not be like, where is what are we doing? I guess the first point is kind of more basic stuff, but taking your time to communicate about the needs you're going to have on that trip. Not so much a problem to like be aware of, but in experience, one of the things we had was I ended up doing a lot of the visa application or whatever, and the problem isn't that, it's then I was able to express it. I think that's where it's important, where I was like, hey, I'm fucking feeling a bit drained here, I'm doing a lot of it, I need a hand, like I need support. So I think just open communication for the very first step is the most important part. Okay, that's it for point one. We are currently at the beach. We have happy dogos running around us. So many little loose dogs in Bali. Hello, dogo. Our second point is daily planning. Specifically, once again, in the same way that I'm someone that likes to do kind of everything in one bulk, and she likes to plan over a long time and really plan, like see everything, know where everything is. For the daily planning, you'd be the type of traveler that would schedule your day or no?
Yes, like every day I would be like 8 o'clock I'm going to this restaurant, 9 o'clock I'm going here, 10 o'clock I'm going to this, 11, 12, every day, all day.
Which I am definitely not. I like going to a restaurant when I'm hungry and looking for activities when I feel like doing something. And if I feel like going to the beach, then I can just go to the beach. Even in a busy place, if I feel like checking out this or that, I'll do it more like on the spot, super spontaneous. Once again, I'm just, a schedule tends to freak me out. So the place where we met halfway as a couple was, instead of saying no planning anything, or me, I have to follow her whole schedule, or she has to do her own thing solo and I do my own thing solo, where we kind of met halfway in a good way was she got to do all the research she wanted and kind of just figure out all the restaurants she definitely wanted to check out, all the activities or events that she wanted to check out, even if they didn't exist anymore. Fun fact, we went to the Bali Vegan Festival that has not been a festival since COVID has started. So see, not all planning works out anyway. It wasn't happening. She got to do all the planning, all the little research that she wanted to do for figuring out activities, places to go, all that. But the way we set it was, unless it's like an event, like a festival, let's not set when we go, like let's not pick a day that it has to happen or a time that it has to happen. You choose for yourself whether or not you feel like it. So daily planning has been good that way. It's definitely been really good also for us to actively check with each other. What do you feel like doing? Where do you feel like eating? There's a lot of eating out, specifically if you're traveling in Bali. It's just as cheap as it would be to buy food. We don't even know where the grocery store.
Grocery stores.
Yeah, we don't, well, probably not in the touristy area, but from what I've heard anyway, eating out is still the exact same price almost as groceries, except we eat at what we call white people places where they charge a tiny bit more. What?
I think I was touching a dead fish.
That's a shell.
I think I was rubbing my foot on it.
She was rubbing her foot on a dead fish. Oopsies. Not a dead fish. Success. But yeah, pretty much we check in with each other, and I think that's a really good way to do it. Every day you just, okay, what do we need to do? What do we want to do? I've been really adamant on saying we only do what we want to do, not what we need to do. Like not setting a thing as a rule, a thing that must happen, but more as a, we want this and therefore we do it. And then there's definitely the points where some days I do more of what she would like and some days she does more of what I would like. Some days I'm just like, listen, I have to do nothing today. And some days I totally understand that we have to do things, and so I'll participate in way more events, even if I normally would have checked out way before. Even with that, there's still the option of solo, which we will touch on later, but there's still the option of, if we can't meet halfway for a specific day, you still have the option to go your own way. So that was point number 2 for daily planning. Make sure to meet halfway. And if you have a crazy planner with a crazy do-nothinger, that's a really good way to go about it. Okay. Moving on to point 3.
Third point, the changing of routines. Because obviously everything in our lives changed since our trip. So we've kind of had to adapt both together and individually. I think maybe I felt a bit more of the change because I went from being employed and working 40 hours a week to not having a job at all. And I used to kind of structure my whole life around, okay, so I work at this time until this time, and now I don't have that. And that's definitely affected when we wake up, when we go to sleep, whether we set alarm clocks or not.
Whether we promise to not set alarm clocks, and then we still do after 2 days onwards.
Yeah, that.
I think the main point is this, is like, there's a lot of need to adjust routine-wise, like to understand that your healthy routine that you have at home is going to be different, is not going to be so much available. Like we both can't go to the gym right now just because the first location we're in has a really expensive gym and it's not worth it for us. But we normally work out mornings together in Vancouver. So that's been a change. Like, oh, she still wakes up and does like a home workout versus I don't do home workouts. I don't really enjoy them. And then we've been doing yoga together like every now and then, or yoga herself. That's all part of the routine that's like you kind of have to adjust adjust as it goes, but it's something maybe you don't think about. You think I'm just going to be on vacation, and it is a shift, and in this case it's even a shift that's bigger for one of the two, which could be problematic because the other one's like, what the hell, blah blah blah. So both people kind of have to adjust. Same for like bedtime. Like, we were better at falling asleep together in the city versus here. I tend to be up later, she tends to be up first. Even that, like, we had a talk a few days ago about spending evenings in our hotel room versus spending the whole evening out and then arriving at the hotel room and just going straight to bed, because a lot of the dynamic or healthy part of our routine is also the time we spend together, the things we do together, like whether we're out or not, we're together.
And I think like one of the things that we're missing that we used to be good quality time with was having coffee and breakfast in the morning. And we still do that, but we're at a restaurant, so it's a little bit different, and we don't have the whole process of like making the coffee together, sitting down on the couch, kind of getting to stay as long as we want. So that's been a bit of a change.
Literally just before we hit record, I was talking about if we get to a restaurant that has cereal on the menu, I'm gonna go crazy and love it. But that's kind of the whole thing. Like, you end up missing your little comfort, your little routine that you have. I love cereal at home, and out here we're having to pick like different things, and we're trying even different breakfasts, which when you have your routine, your at home life, you kind of have the same breakfast every day, if not like slight little changes here and there, but not like the way it is at a restaurant where like we're reading the menu and every day could be completely different because it's like, oh, what do I feel like having here? So there's just a lot of things that need to, like, you need to be ready to potentially change as you go, and that's definitely a challenge because depending on how each other takes it well, like personally, on a personal level, how you like your change of routine, and then how you like the change of routine as a couple.
Some people are really bad with changing their routines. Like, it's really stressful for them. I find it a little bit stressful, but I'm trying to find new routines to replace them, which has made it less stressful.
So whether you're working or not, obviously, as you're traveling, there's definitely a lot of potential conflicts. So it's not so much like this one, haha, it's going to bite you in the ass, but there's a lot of potential conflicts that could come with that one that are important to be aware of. And also just touch base. Honestly, a lot of the points that we're mentioning, it's just communicate. Like, say when you need to change something. Say when something is too much or not enough. Say when you miss a certain thing.
Yeah.
Or if you want to change a certain habit and whatnot. Point number 4, what to do when you're inevitably fighting.
Uh-oh.
Which happens, guaranteed, unless you're amazing.
Which we're not.
Yeah, literally our biggest fight to date happened within
1 week?
4 days, 5 days. It was day 5, I think, of being here. One of those days being my food poisoning day, so not even counting. So pretty much you're gonna fight. It's not a question of if it's gonna happen, but more like how do you deal with it once it happens? Because you're now somewhere else in the world where the only person you have is the person you're currently fighting with.
Can't go see friends.
Depending on the time difference and stuff, then you don't really get to call people.
Can't go to your like comfort spots. Like if you've got a spot you always go to that calms you down.
Yeah, also there's the safety of where you are in general. So I think planning, for fuck's sake, what is it with flies and me, man? Can I fucking catch a break? I hate the feeling of fucking bugs on me, and the flies are literally landing on my leg. They're not touching her. That's gonna be a source of a fight. You're gonna fight. That's guaranteed. And then I think, especially because you don't really have a safety spot, a little spot where you can go to have your peace. I think the type of fighting you have on a trip requires almost extra work than it does at home. Mm-hmm. At home, you can kind of let go of things or go about things maybe in a less healthy manner. But in such a far off place, you're kind of forced to still have a slight degree of maturity or just extra effort to put in, even though obviously when you fight, that's the last thing you want to do. But that's a good sign of good relations. You got to put effort.
Yeah, effort.
Which is definitely part of the things we're working on as well.
Effort, communication, maturity.
Yeah, pretty much what happened during our big fight, not why, I don't have to share that, but like what happened was then we weren't really on talking terms. And it was like, how do you go about that? How do we each go about getting space while also being together or not together? One of the things that we have set while we're on this trip, we do have a data plan for our cell phones. And we both have iPhones, so we get to use this tracking thing. We share our locations with each other. So in any moment, you could track the other person. Like even though you're in a fight, you could still know they're safe. You could still know where their device is, which is important. Ironically, in the way that I'm using this as a great example, we went about not turning on our data exactly for that, I think, or other factors, but there was definitely kind of a resistance instead, which is a mistake on our part. We're also in a very safe place, so
yeah,
like it turned out all right. But it's definitely, once again, one of those things where you might want to have the maturity to choose to still share your location, to still allow the other person to know your whereabouts and stuff like that.
I feel like we resolved it pretty quick too. I think, at least for me, I probably would have been a bit angrier for a bit longer. But I was like, okay, number 1, I don't want to ruin another day of this trip. Number 2, I don't have any of my other like little comfort things that that would normally help me kind of calm down and relax. So I just kind of need to just deal with it myself and do it and talk it out and figure it out.
Yeah, I think like I'm someone that likes dealing with things right away, and so I was the one pushing for that. We had about 36 hours of like, yeah, and I was pushing for like, look, I don't want to fucking waste my time doing this. Like, this
Yeah.
is no good for either of us. And I even went as far as like, if you're lucky, I have a therapist, and I went as far as emailing her. I got to have a phone call with my therapist just to be able to touch base. Not everyone has that luxury or chance, so I took advantage of it. Had some support person I could contact, I guess. And one important part that we did too was we did go our own ways. Like for a whole day,
We were apart.
we were apart, and we did things that make
Our individual selves happy?
there you go. That I went and spent a day at the beach. I was just long chair, beach, coffees, food, played volleyball with a bunch of Balinese locals, saw the sunset, and I journaled a lot. I journaled 2 pages. That was my approach to it. Write down my thoughts, analyze what the pattern is, and kind of come down to some answers or a little more knowledge of what was happening, or a little more clarity to what I could bring in. That's my approach.
I went for a really long walk on the beach, and then I went to yoga class, and then I hung out at this kind of cafe place and worked on my journal. Then went for another long walk. That's what helps me.
And it might sound great, but then the second we saw each other, tension was right back up. It still comes down to we did go our own ways and did things that made us feel better on an individual level. But then, of course, then we met up, we had some tension again, and we kind of had this tension until we like fought it out, like had a serious talk, especially because I was like kind of pushing for a quicker resolution of the issues. So it's gonna happen. You're gonna fight. In fact, we're literally kind of fighting-ish as we're filming this, but it's different. That's not the same level of fighting.
No.
But it's gonna happen. You're with someone constantly. It's more like the maturity of what you're gonna do once it happens. Choosing, okay, look, what is our safest way to do this? To go and deal with this situation while also not putting each other at risk. It's great if you have someone to reach out to. It's also great if you can know that you're both safe. I think as an individual, if you need your space, it's still important to communicate that to the other person, to say like, look, I just need space. I need to go somewhere. I need to think. I need quiet. It's gonna add this challenge, and you don't want to ruin your trip or cancel your trip as you're going. So instead, just know it's gonna happen. You can even talk about it as you're planning beforehand, like as we talked in the first step. And all the planning that you do, you can plan. What do we do if we fight? You know, what are some set rules that we will both choose to follow, even when the last thing we want to do is do what the other one wants, right? Only one more point to go. I guess that brings us to our final point, which ironically is you're going to spend a lot of time together as you're attached on me. You're going to spend a lot of time together.
What?
I think it's important to like remember that, not just as a duh, you're going to be together, but like as something to be aware of, as something to still not get complacent for. Like, because you're forced together all the time, if you stop putting in effort because you're just together, like if you're just taking it for granted in a way, well then what happens is it can make it a little less nice, a little more, yeah, a little more tense, which we just talked about fighting, and that can definitely be a source of them because you're clearly not having too much personal time, let's say.
So do cute things.
So do cute things, like be sure to still be cute, to treat your person with lots and lots of love, unless you're someone that's not showy, but show it how you need to or how you usually do.
Go on dates.
Go on dates, even if it's like an easy one like going to the beach or
Yeah.
whatever. But with that as well is be sure to have some solo time. I think for us, solo time doesn't just mean like activities alone. Like she does yoga, and I tend to just stay in my room and play Honkai Star Rail on my iPad because that's my gaming time, my little solo time. If you hear this bell, it's a dog with a bell, and
Very cute.
yeah, one of our favorite dogs. You're gonna spend a lot of time together, and so it's really important to communicate. Make sure that everyone is kind of happy. You get your peace time or you get your recharge time. If that's the same for both, great. If it's not, which it most likely isn't, be sure to allow that for the other. As we talked about earlier as well, like even sharing location for the solo activity is great because then you can just double check, make sure that your partner is safe, that they're good, they're at the location they said they were going. Just allowing solo time, whatever that solo activity is, I think is good.
So quality solo time and also quality together time.
Yeah, and not all your time together is going to be quality.
No,
Like
it's
allow
not.
for just meh. Allow for just okay.
And then it
this-
makes the good times better.
Yeah, and you can do solo things together. Like we went in a market earlier, and all I had to do was just walk behind. So we were together, but not forcing us to do the activity together, like the actively doing it. The thing.
So I think as long as you prioritize both, and yeah, don't take either of them for granted.
Mm-hmm.
Your alone time is important. The other person's important.
And I think if we can like combine a lot of the points we just made, there's the how you show love, like your love languages. Like in our case, we're very, in case you can't tell, physical touch as a love language. We're also quality time as a love language. And so it's important to maintain that. Just like we talked about how the routines get shifted. Even though the routines get shifted, making sure that your partner receives the love how you normally give it or how they like receiving it is really good. In the same way for the fighting, not withholding. If you'll notice, a lot of the times when you fight, your reflex to how you're going to treat your partner is withhold all the things that are normally your love languages, the things that would bring you back to feeling together, because that's just how you kind of punish someone / punish yourself. So taking all these into account, you're going to spend a lot of time together. Allow for some solo time, allow for some time together. Make sure to stay sweet and cute as much as you can, because you're on a trip together. So that would be the ultimate goal. Your goal is not to break up on a trip. And honestly, a trip so far is pretty much like one of the biggest challenges to your relation in general. And see it as that. See it as a potential challenge, as a potential period in time where you're gonna have some things to work through, but it doesn't mean everything. It doesn't mean the end. It doesn't have to, at least. And the more maybe these tips have helped you, the more you'll be able to just go through that phase, go through that adventure. The more you allow these things and you go through that adventure together. Maybe you come back home and you have a story to tell, or maybe you have more tips for us.
I think that's it.
I think that's it. I think we've said 5 things that are definitely challenging. We're gonna go ahead and fight for 116 more days, 110 more days, however long we still have left. Bell Dogo in the back. We're gonna make more videos like these. If you if you ever broke up with your partner on a trip, be sure to leave a comment. Let us know if you want to know more about the dynamic of our relationship. I like to think we're people that try to maintain a good one. But we also don't want to fake things. Like even in this video, as everything looked kind of great in the background, maybe we're not trying to like be the travel-y things that just makes it look perfect.
It's not.
That's why our very first video about traveling is about the conflicts and how you're gonna fight. That's our goal with it. So let us know your thoughts and comments or things you'd love us to talk about, whether it's the relationship, whether it's Quinn stuff, whether it's the travel. Any questions, any future ideas, we'll give it some thoughts. You cheesy fuck. If you made it this far, thanks for watching.
I think we should use my ending.